Welcome to She Blaze, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, Cannabis Socialite.
And I am Dasheeda Dawson, the WeedHead. Hey.
Good morning.
How
On
are
to,
you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a good day. On today's episode of She Blaze, Whoopi and Maya gets a divorce, a new cannabinoid was discovered, and we're giving you tips on how to live your best life all month long during 420.
Woo-hoo. A lot of people don't realize that 420 is all month long this year, April 2020. If that doesn't give you enough to be high on, I'm going to add to the pot by kicking things off with the high of the week. And for me, the high of the week is gearing up for my February class that gets started on February 18th. This is probably the last chance you get to register for that class. But yes, because it's my birthday month, it's $25 off, and that does not require a code. So my high of the week is my birthday sale for my Intro to Cannabis Business course that instead of $100 is now $75 and actually includes a free print workbook. This, again, today is probably your last possible day. So I wanted to make sure I threw that in here, and I'll make sure you have the link in the comments as well.
Okay, cool. Not actual cannabis, but cannabis education. So, well, I'm smoking Mac 10. It's a sativa, a lot of pinene, limonene. So it's pretty all right. Like nothing really to write home about.
I'm actually testing the Tribe Tokes CBD vapes. I'm in New York, and it's just, when you are on the road trying to get the right amount of cannabinoids, I love lock and key and I love the tincture, but just being able to have the action of smoking something, then yeah. But so far, we've been trying Sour Tsunami, and everybody seems to love it. I love it as well.
That's what's up. Well, I'm glad we got that. Got that in the bag.
Shout out to Kim B. All right, let's get into these hot topics.
Yes, so our first hot topic of today is Whoopi and Maya. Now, remember when these products came on the shelves, it blew us for a storm. Like, we were like, wait, Whoopi Goldberg likes cannabis? And, she understands that it will benefit women to use cannabis during their, monthly cycle. And it's so funny because we actually talked about it in our Valentine's Day episode about the different women products we would like to see. And so they really were hitting the nail on the head when they launched in 2016, back when California had its medicinal program only. Right. Now, fast forward to 2020, they are in California and Colorado, and through rules, regulations, taxes, so many changing things, they are just not seeing eye to eye with the brand.
Wow. Yeah. When you say it gets a divorce, that's how it feels. They were one of the first brands, in my opinion, that understood that the face of cannabis was changing, and that if we were going to really do well in the adult use market, it meant actually capitalizing smartly on the medical market, and they did. I was just telling Imani, she's like, I love their product. If you suffer from any type of ailments that are related to uterine issues, whether it's endometriosis, fibromyalgia, which is more throughout the body, and any of the more women issues, they have products that kind of varied, but it could just be a typical cycle, right? I also love that they did a great job with the branding. It was very simple, consistent, and definitely with its feminine touches. And so it's a sad day because it means that in some ways they were kind of regulated out, and not every owners are going to agree, but because they started in one type of market and they tried to transition for the bigger money in the next type of market, which a lot of brands tried to do, they suffered from that ultimately in their infrastructure. And so it's just sad. I'm disappointed, but I'm really excited to see what Whoopi will do next in the space as one of the first celebrity brands that we could kind of get behind, because it did dispel myths and start to move the conversation further.
Well, some of their product assortment, like you said, was very focused on the things we talk about and we need all the time. They also had bath soak, topical balms, edible tinctures. So they did expand their line past just women focused things. And it's sad. It is sad, but this is the state of cannabis 2020. As sad as it is, I'm not that surprised because of all of the rules and regulations and the influx of the things that people thought they were able to do. It's pretty it's not surprising, but hopefully, Whoopi's watching and trying to figure out how she could again succeed in the cannabis industry. And shout out, we'll come on and help you get some more ideas developed and ideate different ways to get back in the market, right?
I kind of wish I understood exactly what the business disagreements were, because as a strategist, I feel like they're taking like a real leap out of the market when they had a lead on certain new fast growing consumers. And that is something that shouldn't be scoffed at. It, yes, maybe put some work behind more of what that brand identity would be so that you can convert faster. Perhaps even taking a page out of the book of Euphoria, where they added a CBD line, and as a result has been able to get more brand equity across the country outside of the California market. I know they had to change a lot with their packaging, and retooling on the supply chain side is not fun ever. Trust me, I know. And so I can imagine some of the ups and downs and the resilience that they had to, show to be in business to this point. But I guess I'm curious, because of their positioning, it feels like a miss to walk away at this point, especially given they have the celebrity factor. But that's just my 2 cents. And, it might not be worth even that. But it is definitely one of those things where I wish, as a strategist, as a business person, that I would be able to kind of get a chance to sit down with the brand and figure out where were the challenges as far as next steps.
Yeah, well, the world may never know, because they didn't let us know what the disagreements were behind the scenes. But I am very curious. I do have some theories of my own that I probably won't say on camera.
Okay.
But it is what it is, and I hope she comes back and takes it by storm. Maya's actually been in the cannabis industry for a long time before they paired up, so we know she got her ducks in a row. So Whoopi, holla at us. But like cannabis rules and regulations, there are so many things that are changing with the market. Research is ever changing as well. And we have scientists that has discovered a new cannabinoid. So let's move to our hot topic number 2.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, a group of Italian researchers announced that they discovered 2 new cannabinoids, THCP and CBDP. And I know it sounds very familiar, but some are saying that the structure looks a lot different. So maybe you could put on your scientist coat and break it down for us, Dr. D.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I am not a doctor.
Gotcha.
And I just want to
Only
make
on
sure,
TV. What are we doing here?
only on TV. I mean, really, no. I have desires to attain that in the future. But as far as looking at this from a molecular perspective, first of all, the THCP stands for the tetrahydrocannabiphorol. Phoral is the ending, and the same for the CBD. It really does amount to a couple of atoms that have been removed and added, and they do look very similar, and so, as a result, function similarly. The plant has so many cannabinoids, over 150 in one piece of literature I've read, over 500 in others. Those that have been studying it longer, endocannabinologists, if you will, like the Knox, the Doc Knox, they have a lot stronger, I think, understanding. I'm always curious. We need to have them on. They're real doctors that can basically help us break down whether or not we should believe this, or do we count it as a new cannabinoid. And I guess from a molecular standpoint, the minute that you change anything, one atom adds, it can change to a whole different molecule. I'll give a perfect example. H2O is water, whereas H2O2, you've only added one oxygen, and it's now hydrogen peroxide. And trust me, you're not going to want to chug hydrogen peroxide versus water. They taste different. They do very different things. So even that small change from a molecular standpoint, as a layperson, I look at it and I'm like, that doesn't seem very change. And that's going to add more confusion to the market. But from a molecular standpoint, it is probably that very small change that can create some nuances on what's going to happen on the back end. So I'm definitely going to be watching this. Whenever we discover new things and more things in cannabis, while the federal government is still trying to figure out sorting through the old stuff that they told us, I always find it a little amusing. It's almost like we're moving too fast for our own good. We kind of need to slow down and put more definition around what we already know, and there's so much misinformation around it. I'm always a little concerned, but basically, just to give a little bit for those people who want to geek out with me, and we'll leave the link in the comments. Essentially, there's a side chain that's very critical in the molecular structure of this new molecule that's more elongated and allows for it to bind more easily to the various receptors in the endocannabinoid system. That's CB1 and CB2. Now, everybody already knows that in some ways, CBD doesn't really do a direct binding. And so and when we talk about it for CBD, I don't think molecularly it's as impactful. However, for the THC side of things, where the binding mechanism is very different, I think having more ability to bind, more linking places could be a lot more impactful. Certainly in releasing it or being able to bump it from the receptor. But at the end of the day, one of the things I love about this receptor system, is the last thing I'll say as a nerd, is that it's a feedback system. And folks often worry about overloading it, and certainly we can when we're not getting proper dosages, which are really extreme amounts. But mostly it's a system that's saying if your body is doing too much or too little of something, it gives that feedback to say, hey, turn this on or turn this off, to adjust to the too much or the too little. It is brilliant in that way. The cannabinoid is a molecule that you don't have to tell it what to do. So presumably these will be smarter or more efficient. I won't say smarter, but more efficient at the receptor. And so even more so effective in the various ailments that we have that it resolves. So I'll keep looking.
Well, here was my thing. A lot of times if the research isn't done in America, people don't count it as being like real accurate. So it's, I like to shed light on international things, and not to even mention, really, it when it comes to America, sometimes I think we can pollute some of the research and information that we found about the plant, because we want to isolate it and put it in this pill and then mix it with this and make it that. And that's how K2 got started. So, I definitely am trying to not let us discover too many things here in America before it gets tainted. And just have people know that, when we say there's a bunch of molecules, there's a bunch of different things as the entourage effect of cannabis. We want them to know that it's not just THC or CBD and, that's it. And you're not going to buy a $80 product just because it has this much CBD in it. It's the entourage effect. So if you spending $80, you want all the molecules. molecules and stuff.
Right.
So
Exactly.
so, I definitely wanted to bring it to a head so people won't get tricked too when it comes to people and their selling and marketing, if you know what I mean.
That's the reason why I get concerned. This is a group of Italian researchers. You hit the nail on the head on how we feel with U.S. research versus overseas, but this has been illegal here, even in the medical capacity for federal levels. So we haven't been able to do the research. So the best information is going to come from overseas. And best believe they're not BSing when they get their doctorates over there either. And a lot of our scientific communities are global now. It isn't the case thanks to the internet for at least the last 20 years. You are not operating in a vacuum. And so I welcome the information. It doesn't surprise me, however, that they focus the story, and that might not be the research, so I'm going to dig in further, but they focus the story on the THC version and the CBD version of these new molecules. But my guess is that there's a for-all version of all of those CBDs, cannabinoids that we have actually identified already in some way, you know what I mean? Or many of them, and maybe not. But the point is that they're capitalizing here on the prominence of THC and CBD, and therefore the prominence of sub-molecules or sister molecules that may convert into them or be better acting, functioning versions of them. They're capitalizing on that. We need to study the real plant. We need to stop trying to focus what you described as capitalism and manufacturing. So when we're trying to make it into a pill before we really fully understand it, is that we're trying to capitalize on it in the manufacturing world for consumer products before we really do the research. And that's just, in some ways, that's how we wind up eating like margarine, which is basically plastic. You know what I mean? Like molecular.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like it's because we put something out as a better alternative to butter, and look at us now. 30 years later, we're back to butter is now preferred because we found out molecularly, basically, we were eating plastic in the margarine. It just, child, don't get me started. I mean, it can't be perfect, but it is one of those things where we just got to be a little bit better in the cannabis space and demand more information as patients and as consumers, but don't try to demonize and always look for the bad. And don't try to be a snake oil salesperson, always looking for the cha-ching out of a new thing like this. So kudos to that Italian research group, but let's just hope people use the information for good and not for crazy claims.
Right. You don't use the Sith Lord Jedi trick.
Yes, exactly.
Well, as you said, people have to remember cannabis is just a herb, and consumers are becoming more conscious. And so, as we talk about conscious consumers, it definitely merges us into topic 3 because we are raising a bunch of conscious consumers. And really, as we consumers in America are finding out that there is no way to federally prove cannabis is organic. So right now, we're really at a cornerstone in the market as the Cannabis Certification Council, CCC, is trying to launch a campaign called What's in My Weed.
Wow.
Now this campaign is going to take a couple of, months to really get started and launched, but it's all about organically grown and creating rules and regulations around what's considered organically grown cannabis.
That's all really important. I mean, I think we know that in our regular produce, and remember, we've said many a times that we should probably be treating cannabis more like produce when you shop for it. It's something fresh, it's a plant, it's living, and you want it to be in its healthiest state when you get it home, and then you want to be able to keep it. I think being able to determine whether something is organic or not right now is like commonplace for the consumer in any area, not just produce. Like, we're looking at our cereals, we're looking at our milk, we're looking at everything we're consuming. And like you said, everybody's becoming more and more conscious, period, because we want to be healthier. And I think there's a general, I don't want to say mistrust, but like I said, a lot of people started moving to TV dinners, processed foods, all of the things that were promoted and advertised. And what we're finding out after 30 years, seeing higher rates of cancer, higher rates of autoimmune issues, that perhaps we weren't led in the right direction in terms of how we should take care of ourselves. And so this is one of those ways that cannabis can be a better industry from the gate and start policing ourselves. But because there are, like, again, legal ramifications around what something is organic, and only the USDA and, you know, very specific groups can really certify it. This is us coming to the table and saying, you might be excluding us, but we have our own thing as well. In some ways, it kind of feels a little bit like back in the day in the civil rights movement, where a lot of Black organizations were founded, a lot of award ceremonies founded because we weren't necessarily included. And so I think this is a good idea. My concern is, are we making too many of these things in the cannabis space, and should it be one entity? Because there's a lot of other certification groups that are out there, and they're doing great work too. I just wonder if we're boiling the ocean because we're all working separately.
Well, like you said, there are other organic type programs that your cannabis could be a part of if it matches those regulations. And one of the programs is called Certified Clean Green. It's only in California and Oregon, so it's not as national as the CCC wants their program to hopefully reach. The thing is that I do agree to a certain degree we are boiling the ocean, but you know, I was just in Whole Foods the other day and I was picking up just a couple groceries, and you know, like you said, there are stamps on it to prove that it's gluten-free, non-GMO, you know. There's a couple other things that it is as well. And so that kind of does feel like it's saying the same thing with these stamps too. So it kind of just falls into how our American system is. So hopefully, as they are creating this system, theirs are a little different from clean green programs. Maybe, you know, CCC also has, you know, clean packaging. So maybe we want to see hemp holders for our cannabis, excuse me. So I do wonder, as they launch this, yes, are we boiling the ocean, or how can it differ or be better for clean green so it's more of a national reach, you know?
I agree. I mean, I think part of what happens is marketing here. So certified clean green certainly should and could be in more places beyond California and Oregon, but I really feel like that has to do with the adoption rate and where they market it primarily. Theoretically, they should be able to certify every state in terms of hemp being clean green if they wanted to. That's a great hack. And so I hope that CCC is taking a learning from the previous, where it really got stuck in the state. And for something like that, that doesn't need to be stuck. It doesn't have anything to do with bringing over any type of material. It's literally bringing a standard, and a standard that one must be met in order to get certified. That is just information and someone to certify folks. So I think I agree with you. I would like to see this do it bigger and better, and perhaps, yes, be more inclusive than just the product itself, that we have so many eco opportunities in cannabis that it really could be that it's packaging as well, especially when it comes to the fact that there's so many state regulations. Like, I'm reading right now the CRTA, which is the New York's newly proposed bill, like we talked about in last episode. And girl, like, if you could only pick up an ounce a day, if that's the way you're getting it, right, then you are probably going to accrue a lot of packaging, the same way some states only let you sell it in the ACE. We have to think about that even when we're rolling out programs. So I hope that this gets some rapid adoption, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to roll out. How will we know? Is it going to be a stamp? Is it going to be something that is like a seal of approval? Because I see all those things on the packaging, like you said, gluten-free, and oftentimes I read the back like, who says so? Like,
who made it?
who decided, who proved this is true. Everything is gluten free now, and everything is that. And I guess you'll know if you don't really supposed to have gluten if it has it, because you'll have a bad reaction. But sometimes I'm not as trusting of what's happening in the packaging, and having that third party means that there's an ability to form trust with the consumer faster.
Yes, the third party is so important. And like you said, in Nevada, there's not a clean green program out here, but you often hear about different cultivations and stuff just saying that, we're organically grown, or we're clean grown. And, sometimes I just want to sit and ask them, well, what does that even mean? So this gives it the ability to know what it at least means a little bit, what their standard is trying. And it hopefully encourages, lab testing
Yeah.
and research on the plants, because I already know the testing that's being done in Nevada. Okay, sure, that's what you said it is. Okay. It
I
looks like
think
the
you
same
raised
thing on
a
the
good point. I think you raised a good point, because in Nevada we're seeing, and it's not the only market, Arizona does it as well. We're seeing a lot of people say that it's organically grown, and then we can talk to David, who's into cultivation and understands the technology. And like you said, people define organic differently, right? And even down to how organic we're talking. And so at least with a third party, you'd be able to go to a website. Hopefully there might even be a QR code, and you could see what their standards are, and you could decide if that's up to your standards or not. But yeah, some people is down to the soil, down to the pesticide, all of that, and we know that that's not necessarily being looked at when people say organic.
Right. Like when I say I got that organic, like trust me, I've proven through my rules and regulations and just the standard what it means to grow organically. Uh I know that's organic. The other things, I'm like, oh, this is a cute little sticker.
Really? Oh my
Well,
goodness.
as these programs become more national,
Mhm.
we really have to take a look on the East Coast, because they got some cannabis out there too.
Yes, they do.
Stop
Massachusetts
it.
is coming up to be one of those really important states. Yes.
Yes, and Massachusetts has a city called Boston that just licensed their first cannabis shop to Black owners. Yay! Shout out to Equity.
Yay, yay. It's a first.
Yes, it's truly one of those first we talked about. And so the shop is called Pure Oasis. It is in Dorchester. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Neighborhood, which is a minority neighborhood, I think you told me. And so it's really dope that, it's for us, by us in our community.
Yeah, I mean, Dorchester is pretty diverse. I would say it has a good mix. I mean, there are very clear differentiations in the neighborhoods as far as Boston and certain areas of Massachusetts, but I'm excited for at least progress. I don't want to over celebrate, but this is a moment that we should all be proud of.
No, I'm definitely I know what you mean by over celebrating, because when you read further into the things in Massachusetts, you realize that out of the 280 companies, around 10 of the companies actually look like Pure Oasis. So when you're learning that, it's like, wait, that ratio is like WTF. Like
But it's still doing more. Like, I got to shout out Shalene Title, who is part of the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission. She's one of the commissioners. I mean, she's a millennial that's really been of the marijuana movement for some time, really starting her career in advocacy and legislative work, and now being in a position to help determine who's going to get these licenses. And it has been pretty rough out there. I'm looking on the feeds, and I'm checking out some of these links that show video, and some of these commission meetings are heated. girl, like they're really up there, upset, and they have reason to be. I'm always, really impressed with Shalene's ability to have poise in response to some of these things. But, the truth is, this is also what happens when you have a commission that really only one person, maybe two, if I'm being like generous, really get it. Right, really get it,
Right.
and she really gets it. She just, at the end of the day, one person though, and there's still a framework that the government has set up for regulation, and we have to operate within the framework. And I think she's an attorney as well, so she really understands that part of being in business and regulating a new industry quite well. And I think that that's where, folks don't realize her hands are tied to some degree. First, there was an issue with how many people were even applying, right? And then there was the issue of the purposeful delays in some ways. I think at some point we want to make a deep dive into Massachusetts. It's worth it because they're a great lesson and in positive insights as well as negative ones in terms of ways to get this done. But like I've said always, and I continue to say, no city, no entity, no municipality has done this correctly yet. And all we can do is learn and iterate, and continue to iterate and do better the next time around.
Well, wow. I mean, I knew Massachusetts was a hot mess, but a lot of these cannabis places are because they're just hearing coins. So I'm glad that we have someone on the battlefield like Miss Title helping and making sure that we're getting the little bit of table they want to give us and making the most out of it. Because, I mean, if she wasn't even on there, then we'll be looking more like at a 0 versus 10, So
Possibly. I mean, she's part of a bigger cohort. I'll give Massachusetts that. There is, shout out to Darrell Black. He's our M for MM chapter president. I am really excited about what's been happening with Massachusetts. We're going to be there in a few weeks next month for NECAN. It is one of those things where there's a lot of advocacy on the ground. I think some people were a little bit slower into the market, but they're just kind of coming full steam ahead. I got to give a shout out also to Beth Waterfall, who is part of Elevate Northeast. And that's a nonprofit organization that is really about that diversity. At NECAN, they're going to have a diversity, mini summit there in conjunction with M for MM. So I think Massachusetts, there are advocates on the ground who really get it. It's just some of us are Johnny come lately. Some of us are a little bit been trying to figure out how we're going to do it and integrate it with what's already there. And other of us are still waiting for even more support to come in. So it's a balance, I don't want to say it's just one person, but it's still
a lot of people. But compared to the whole state right now, they are a little percentage compared to what everybody else may want to happen. So, I'm glad for the percentage that they have, because I mean, it could be in Illinois where it ain't, it's like whatever. So realistically, yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, the percentage of how many people are actually fighting for diversity and inclusion versus people be like, oh, they'll figure it out, is small. So I do feel like there has to be more people that's not even interested in being in the cannabis industry, that just wants to use the product, or just knows people that's literally life has been turned upside down to fix it. I do think we have to take a deep dive into Massachusetts, but to be fair, we got a few deep dives we got to take before we could start just going in on the states. So maybe in season 4, we'll do a, 11 state dive into each one of the states. But right now, these big cannabis companies that's already here need to be focused on. They need a spotlight, because I'm getting so many DMs about different investments. It's insane. So.
Yes, we do have to keep a spotlight on the bigger cannabis companies and the raises, and whether or not they are, really going to meet the investor needs. I feel like this is a, sort of a spring cleaning, if you will, right? That happens in every industry. So I just have to also dispel the myth that, cannabis is on this crazy downfall. I do feel the media can hype hype things up a little bit more than it really is. But we do have these big companies. If you're doing egregious stuff, you're going to see that backlash. And what's done in the dark does come to light, even in business, no matter what. And so we're seeing that, and we're doing a little spring cleaning. But what will happen is there's mild shrinking in certain areas where there's overblown goals, overblown marketing spent, and you're going to see increase in other areas. More political focus, more lobbying. Yes.
The inflation on some of these investments are insane. So yes, I do agree. And I'm really excited because, this is not the downfall of cannabis because we ain't even peaked yet. So at this point, we just still soar. Our muscles still get used to the run. Shoot.
Yeah. That is so true. That is so true. The industry is growing so fast. It's like dog years. We keep saying it. I can't believe 4 years has gone by so fast, but we've learned so much, and we're still learning every day. Mostly, like you said, how to keep up, how to keep moving at a pace that is pretty escalated without making too many mistakes or tripping up too much. And the companies that figure that out, the consultants and the entrepreneurs that figure it out, even the consumers, you're going to have a much better experience on this ride for this bubble, just to be clear.
True that. Well, we are definitely giving people a ride of their life as we get into this main topic, though, because we've been talking about getting your stamina up for cannabis, boo. And so that means we trying to prep y'all so y'all can hang all month long of 420. Hello.
That sounds like a plan. Yes. So important. I'm glad we're talking about this now because I want all our listeners, all our followers, all you ladies out there that are paying attention and you're like, I may be a little kind of curious and I don't know what to do. This is the time to put in that research. This is the time to get yourself ready.
Right. So, you also don't want to be that person falling out, falling asleep, having hot sweats because you don't know what you're doing. So we're about to give y'all some clues and tips so you can still look cool, even though you haven't done anything in almost, 5, 10, 20 years or whatever.
Yes.
And these tips.
I haven't smoked in 20 years.
Okay, no, seriously, I know people that haven't smoked in 20 years. So, whether you're in a legal state or not, some of these tips will help you.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah, so globally, I feel like my first tip in anything cannabis related is, stay hydrated. Like, you need water. You need water, not juice, not soda, not anything in between. Especially not alcohol because it makes you more dehydrated, first of all. First of all, it makes you more dehydrated.
It's your blood and your drink, okay?
Okay, I mean, if that's what type of party you about to have, listen, I live in Vegas, so I get it. But if you haven't smoked in 20 years, I definitely urge you not to use alcohol. Just stick to water, seltzer, alkaline water. There's all kinds of water you can have nowadays. So stay hydrated, people.
Can we just interject and say that some people believe that water here also means CBD water? And I would say you want to tread lightly with that. A lot of the CBD water, especially ones with nanotechnology, they're going to have a slightly different impact. You're not going to want to chug and lug them the same way. A lot of them come with a pretty large percentage of milligrams. And so it will affect your intention. Now, if that is your intention, it's all good. Add it in. It's a great part of the repertoire, and it will at least keep you hydrated. But if your intention isn't to try to, add in 100 milligrams of CBD, don't make your water the CBD infused one.
No.
I love it, by the way. Give me a little something with a bubble.
You did learn that the hard way, that chugging CBD water is probably not what you want to do. But to be fair, I do feel a little less hydrated when I sip infused water. I don't know. It's just me personally, maybe because I love the taste of water. I love drinking water. But, I feel like after I drink a bottle, I'm like, dang, I'm still thirsty. Like, you just drink. So,
quenching your thirst no more.
Right. So non-infused water, everybody.
Yes.
My next advice is have the snacks on deck, especially if you're one of those gluten free, keto life, vegan, all those fancy eatery habits. Definitely have your snacks on deck, okay?
That's a good idea. I'm one of those people where I like salty and sweet. So I maybe is not as fancy, although I don't like a lot of sugar anymore. But the reality is salty and sweet are hard to find unless you are prepared. And that means having it already on deck, as she said. Is it on me now?
Yes, yes. What's some of your global tips on how to do the 420 all month long?
Oh, well, we were just talking about CBD. So in this case, I am, more tipping you to get the best quality CBD. And that might not be in a water infusion or a nanotechnology. I do feel like CBD is really important in helping people who are balancing, especially if you're going to be doing high THC dabs, anything that is going to make, your THC levels a lot higher. This is something that can at least balance you throughout the night. The Duchess loves using it as she's dealing in her OOs, which are super fat. It's like flour, her hash. It's all of
Six
those
to eight,
things.
9 grams.
Yes, it's a lot of cannabis. And what's a good way to give yourself a little bit of balance is making sure you have CBD. I believe in full spectrum CBD. So again, I want to shout out Lock and Key Remedies, which we sell on our site at theweedhead.com/shop. You can get the high potency tincture or the extreme potency tincture. And I think for this, to be honest, you don't really need more than a high potency tincture. And it's probably something you're going to have a couple of drops, maybe a quarter of a dropper underneath the tongue as the night goes on, especially if you felt like, okay, that last dab really did something, or that last dab might have been too much. It's a good
Right.
way to keep it going. Which leads me to my next thing, unless you got any brands that you like as far as quality CBD.
Oh, well, I am using the Lock and Key. I also have used the Tribe Toke. So, I am CBD on deck naturally because of my personality. So, don't be that guy falling out because we have gone to a few cannabis parties and boy, they will just hit the floor. And we be like, oh, dang, they should have had some CBD. So, note to self if you're doing anything.
Well, I think that people often confuse why CBD. So maybe that's another thing that we would want to have as another hot topic in the future. But CBD it's not an immediate counteraction. Like it really is about how it helps you maintain, primarily, in my opinion, with really strong sativa like strains that are high rapid heart rate, head high often. It can help you deal with some of the paranoia you may experience, like you took a real rip on a green crack kind of strain and now you're like, oh no,
Well,
oh
that is
shit.
scary. Probably shouldn't tell them to take a rip on a green crack if they haven't smoked cannabis in 20 years. I'm just
Yeah, well, okay, maybe not green crack. Some strains in the thing that
Jack
we would.
Herrera. Listen, I'm a sativa diva and I get paranoid real quick. So
Yes,
I
so
get
that
it.
CBD will help with the paranoia. But there are a couple other products out there. Not all of them work very well. Be careful of any detoxes or any things like that that are supposed to work through your liver. They can actually slow down your metabolism in general, and that is, honestly, is not what you want, to be
Right.
honest.
True that. Well, what's another chip? D?
Okay, so next tip for DD is micro dosing, which goes aligned with what this whole CBD. I guess I going to the high times events and being in a situation where we're watching people take a dab and then they like pass out. Which is real, and I don't want to scare anyone because that means that either was too high temperatures, too big a dab, it was whatever the
Or they
delivery
was
mechanism
drunk. There'd be
was
a lot
not.
of that.
Oh yes, and blending it with alcohol makes that as well. But basically, I feel like microdosing helps prevent some of these things. And I'm a big microdoser. I like small, and that microdosing to me is anywhere from 1 milligram to 5 milligrams of cannabinoids at a time. Primarily focusing on that THC cannabinoid, but I will take because I have autoimmune issues, I take higher levels of CBD, of course, but but micro dosing means a little at a time. That means you stand, you go up, you want to take a dab, make sure it's, if they suggest what it is, you ask for half that. And then you look again and you say, give me half that. And then that might be where you start. Same thing with these joints. People like to buy the joints that's triple wrapped in the keef and the concentrate. No, if you're going to do that, you could take a hit, be a one hit wonder that night. Okay.
Right. I would tell you, even like, if you've never taken a dab before, you might not want to take it off the rig. Like, I know people that are so dramatic after it that because they feel so much and they didn't microdose, they didn't take CBD, they call the police and go to the hospital, and they gonna be like, "Sir, ain't nothing wrong with you." So you really just have to microdose. You have to. And if you're taking the dab, like for the first time taking any concentrate, you might not want to hit it off of a glass rig. You might want to try an electronic one where you can really control the temperature, how quickly it heats up, versus like a rig blowtorch, even an e-nail, which is continuously on too. So please.
We
So
might
my
want to do a dab one-on-one just because, a lot of people are going to be trying it for the first time. We said microdose. I think you have some excellent ideas or tips that are global as far as what type of tools or resources. They have various pens like our executive pen. These are things that you can take a dab, in quotes, right? Really hitting a concentrate so that you can get a higher concentration of the cannabinoids and terpenes.
Right. And so my last global tip, other than don't hit it off a rig, is clean your cannabis accessories. So accessories are really important. I know I have been guilty of somebody being like, "Oh, I got this fire bud, taste this," and they hit my bowl and it's stuffed up. So like, take a second, get some pipe cleaners, get some wires, clean out your bowl, clean out your bong, salt, hot water, high proof alcohol, and some hot water. Clean that joint out, okay? We want a clean hit if we're smoking flower. If you're making your magic butter or using your ardent, clean that sucker out, okay? Please.
Yes. It's better to be prepared. One of my favorite things to do when I get fresh flower is make sure my pipe is like spanking clean, because ain't nothing worse than taking a one hit, and I'm a one hit wonder, and that hit is one where you gotta like pull so hard, just really stuffy, and you just burning the trees. You're not actually getting anything solid in your inhale. So yeah, clean your accessories. I also feel like this is the time to start looking at new accessories, maybe, you know what I mean? Don't be the person that wants to invite people over and your stash is in some Ziploc bags inside a Tupperware. And maybe if you are like myself, 40 and over, and you're like, again, trying to be in the market, this is the time to start looking at what you have that you can upgrade. Because I think about how people keep their makeup, I think about how people keep their personal care items, and I think about how they keep their shoes, even sneakers. People take good care of these things. So same way you would your bread, your bananas, your sugar, or your flour, find that location in the house and buy the accessories to support taking better care of your cannabis in this month, because it'll last you longer too.
I completely agree. And you would hate to have people be like talking about you and your cannabis use, especially if you that one friend to you, okay, after they haven't smoked in 10 years and they want to see what you got. You got to come out right? You know what I mean?
Exactly. You got to come correct. That's why I love being that friend, because I have gadget after gadget after gadget.
You are the
And it
gadget.
matches. It's like, here's my little purple bag. And, oh, by the way, did you see my Urbana smell-proof bag? Oh, and it's cute too. Oh, yeah. And I sell that, by the way. Like, be a brand. Cannabis, represent cannabis globally, no matter whether you're in the legacy market or the legal market. Okay, are we ready for more tips? We got to break it down now, because some folks are like, all right, I got it. But what happens if they're not in a friendly market? They're more in a legacy market.
Right. So my first tip for being in the legacy market, for really enjoying 420 all month long, have multiple plugs on deck. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You know,
Yes.
you can't, that one guy you hit up, that's cool, but make sure you got that one guy, his friend, his sister, and his mama too, because really it's 420 and like one, people sell out quickly, people go MIA, you know, and you don't want to get stuck waiting 12 to 24 hours for something that you want to enjoy within 2 hours, right?
That's so true. I mean, every market is not like the New York legacy market where you could get it on an app and it's going to be delivered and it's like basically like, right? It's not going to be that. But I think you're right. My own mistakes, admittedly, have been that I am not trusting of new plugs. And so therefore I have one per, you know, unfriendly city, really. And if that, you know, and honestly, if they're not available or they're not on deck, as they say, then I am stuck, right? So I do agree that's probably the first thing you want to do is wherever you know you're going to be, make sure you have somebody that is connected.
Right. My second tip, if you're in the legacy market, ask the cannabis dealer, do they got any specials or discounts? You know, some people might do 4 grams for 50 at some really top tier. So definitely see if they have any specials. I mean, these are non-tax cannabis, so it's a lot better than the legal markets sometimes with the pricing.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably even just being a little extra, just giving tips in the legacy market, but it's also just keeping it real. It's a market and it does exist. They have supply and demand. And yes, the plug does offer discounts. You're right. I mean, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, of course they do. And it's 420. It's our Christmas. So definitely at least ask. Don't be afraid to ask.
Right. And what would you ask your cannabis dealer in the legacy market during
Well,
420?
you already know I'm bougie, so that's why I even ended with don't be afraid to ask. So that's my other tip is like the legacy market has to start being accountable if we want to keep it as something real. And honestly, that's what my biggest push is as an advocate is that these are real businesses, real entrepreneurs that we're putting out of business when we are legalizing in the way we have been. Doesn't have to be that way, but the market also has to be accountable, and that comes from the consumer base. So I say start holding your connect accountable. Does that mean asking for discounts and specials? Yes, get your little sale on. However, also have the dosing. Ask about potency. You know, they should be giving you the proper weights. At least we know that for the most part is happening correctly in the legacy market. But if they give you something that is a, you know, vape pen or something that's more concentrated, you want to know how much it's supposed to be. Tinctures are being done in the legacy market. Definitely edibles. Around this time, this is where everybody's plug decides they want to become Chef Boyardee, bakery, and it's going to be something that they have infused. Really, where you want to make sure you're like, how much is this? How much of this cookie should I eat? How much is
Bakery. Girl, like seriously, I definitely have. When you said axe potency, I was like, that's kind of weird. Why would they know that? But once you said that, I'm like, they do. They're like, oh, you know, you get this quarter or this half, and I'm gonna throw in a free brownie. It's edible, and I'm like, bro, I don't. Okay, I'll try it. What's the potency? What's it made with? Is it butter, oil? You know, you're gonna want to know those things, especially if you have a fancy diet.
Thank you. So again, I like just respect the fact that you piggyback both of those things because when we were going through this initially and we are like, what are the tips? I was like, a deal, but you're right. That's exactly a perfect like legacy deal. It's like buy the eighth, buy the quarter, get a free edible. That's when you really need to be asking what that potency level is because it's not fun to have your experience you know, ruined simply because the person had no idea what they were actually consuming. And you said another thing that I didn't say, which is it's not just about potency. Ask how they made it. Not everything is made with butter these days. Distillate is something that can be added and it's tasteless in some cases. And it's really just pure cannabinoid and sometimes doesn't even have any of the terpenes in it. So like I just had a lollipop from Sublime when I was in Arizona not too long ago that's made from champagne distillate. So it's not like it used to be. Candy used to have it all just on the coating around it. It actually had the candy lollipop made from this distillate and it tasted delicious. So it's like, just be real with what you know and don't know, and be real with what you want to know. And you as a consumer should want to know what your dosing is, and you should want to know how things are made.
True. Well, what's another tip?
Oh, my last tip for the legacy market in terms of, again, us realizing that we want to have legitimacy. It's time for folks in certain markets. I wouldn't say this is everyone, but if you have something that's decriminalized and it's only a medical program, find a way to host a private event in these legacy markets. Start developing your community, because that same community is going to be the one that you go to when it does legalize. That same community is the one you're leaning into when you are advocating for legalization and regulation. So I just think it's really important for us to stop treating the legacy market like the black market, right? Treat it like what it is, which is something that is, you know, depending on the state, right? You might not want to do this in Texas or some places like Georgia, but depending on the state, you will be able to really start to professionalize your experience and make it so that it's not so so dark and seedy, you know.
Right. And a private event could just be a kickback where people are chilling at your house. You know, it's not like, oh, yeah, you know, you're having a party and people are paying for tickets, or you're having, you know, a marketplace. It could be like your homies all bring their cannabis and they all comfortably smoke at your spot, and y'all try your different accessories. It's a comfortable place where, you know, you get to have your own mood music or TV. And so it's your own personal sesh. It's not like host a party, okay?
Right. So there's different levels depending on what market you're in. I just say, let's start encouraging people to come out of the cannabis closet, even if it's still closeted, right? So if they can trust you and this is your friend circle, more than just smoking in a cypher, make it a little bit more than that. Be, you know, binge watch our episodes, you know, like make it a real little get together, if you will.
Well, you know, I love being on TV, so go ahead and watch me. So, okay, so now we gave you global tips, legacy tips. Let's leave them with the legal market, and we're gonna keep this quick and cute, okay?
Yes, I know we are up against our time clock. So the legal market is very much like any other consumer market. And so I want to leave you with the same thing that I would anybody. Right now is when you can start shopping for the best deals. And how do you start right now? Well, that means sign up for things via email or text now, because they'll start to populate around middle of March. It's no different, like, again, than holiday for regular retail. And so if you're interested in visiting places, or you know you're going to be going somewhere for one of those weekends during the whole month of 420, then this is the time for you to get involved. You want to join loyalty programs if you can. So if you live in a market that's already legal and you've decided that you are going to do an event, well, now's the time to start using your points against, like, or building your points rather. Every time you shop, you're building those loyalty points so that when you want to go make a big purchase, you can actually cash in some of those loyalty points during that month with those deals. So this is my, you know, I guess, best kept secret. You can earn now for use later. And I think it's important for people to know that you can prepare, whether you're trying to visit a legacy, a legal market from maybe a legacy market, or you live in a legal market. You can prepare in advance. Anything you want to add to that before I move on to my next tip?
Nope.
Okay, so the other tip that folks don't realize, this is now, you're in the month of it, even from 4/1 kicking off, it technically is 4/20 all month. So don't sleep on what those lines are going to look like. And every legal market that I have been to that has an pre-order capability, it is always faster. Even if it goes from, oh, instead of waiting for an hour and a half to be able to be seen and pick out what you want, you're only waiting 30 minutes. Sometimes the wait is 30 minutes and it's cut down to 5. Pre order online and pick up at the store. It is a time saver, especially when you're trying to do a party. I also think it's a good way that if you're connecting with folks, that they can put in their orders as well. And it's like, when you're ordering food for the house, everybody can kind of weigh in, and makes it a lot easier for that pickup instead of multiple trips.
Agreed.
Okay.
Except if you want to smell it. If you want to smell it and touch it, then unfortunately you can't. Once you pick up and pre-order online, there's no changing that.
Yes, so that's the one downfall. I think I'm glad you brought that up. You can't smell it. You can't touch it. This is like when you're ordering your Whole Foods produce through Amazon, okay? So they may pick good stuff. They may pick not so great stuff, and I've seen both. We know, shout out to Imani, who really understands how you order from Amazon groceries. But the reality is that that's the equivalent. You're putting your trust in someone else to pick what you want and what it is. I often will use it for things like tinctures and pills or edibles, slips, strips, sprays, things that are already manufactured, and it isn't anything other than just seeing the packaging. Flour, if you're smart, you would start buying in advance, maybe in bulk, and figure out how you're going to preserve your flour yourself through like an apothecary case, right? Shout out to Whitney, who is the owner of Apothecary Case. But yeah, you can do all of these type of things in advance and decide, and you can start now. That's why we're telling you now. You want to start looking on these websites and decide, all right, this one has a great edible assortment versus this one has an awesome other assortment, like just new delivery mechanisms. Mm-hmm. And you can take your pick in a legal market. The last but not least for my tips is that tourists, you're visiting the market, pre-shop the market. I hate when people get in there like they in a McDonald's, they ain't never seen the menu before. Like, that's real. Like, in this case, you haven't seen the menu because you're a tourist, but guess what? Especially in Vegas, most of these places have websites, and online they have their assortment and they have their specials. So you don't have to be the tourist that goes in and is like, trying to figure out exactly what they want to get. So pre-shop.
You're the reason why that line is 2 hours long. No.
Yes, you are the reason why the line is 2 hours long. Pre-shop the line so you can have a more enjoyable cannabis experience, because guess what? You are, in most cases, not going to be able to smoke in a dispensary. So imagine being on a line for a great ride that is not really a ride, and you're not able to smoke. It's not a good setup.
Well, my only tip for the legal market, because you know how I feel about always giving tax money to the state that the flower doesn't necessarily earn it, is just locate a safe space to smoke. No matter what legacy legal, you want to be safe where you're smoking. You want to just make sure, no one's going to roll up on you, especially if you're either smoking a strong indica, so you in the couch, or a super strong sativa, so every little bing, bing, bang makes you jump. So just find a quick, safe space to consume, and your 420 all month long is going to be amazing.
I agree with you. Doesn't get any better than that. I think that we'll probably try to add a little bit of these tips in the comments written out so you can follow and come back, or put them on our website. Either way, we want to make sure that everybody has a safe and happy 420 all month long, because we plan to.
Oh, you already know 420 is litty, litty, litty.
Yeah, situation.
Literally. Yes. So do you want to leave the people with any final words? Because we got to get out of here.
Yeah, so of course we are still sharing success in cannabis, and we have our next tour date coming up. We'll be in Chicago with Elevated Education, as well as Minorities for Medical Marijuana, Chicago Normal, SMART. We have a lot of partners on this next one. We'll be at the University of Chicago at the Harris School of Public Policy. And I'm very excited. That is on Wednesday, February 26th. And yeah, we have a bunch of stuff coming up in March. So you need to stay tuned, and you need to make sure you keep following us at theweedhead.com. You can find me at the Cannabis CEO on Instagram, as well as Twitter. And yeah, I'm excited about what we got going on February, y'all.
February is such a short month, but bunch of things going on in that short month. So make sure you watch us every Saturday morning live on Facebook at 11 a.m. Eastern, and listen to us
Of course, as soon as you say that, your audio goes out. That's like funny. You're like, and listen to us, and now we have no more sound. So I'm not sure if this is still recording me.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. Okay, now you're back. Hey, can we close out now?
Oh, well, I was just talking, so dang, that sucks. But I've been trying to get off. I'm like, dang. All right. Well, my last little final piece is watch us Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard on Facebook Live and listen to us anytime via SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Apple iTunes. So we got to get out of here. Follow along at theweedhead.com, and you can follow She Blaze on Instagram and Facebook.
Woo woo. See you
All
later,
right.
girl. Bye.
Bye.